Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in the month of March. The reading month didn't quite go as I planned. I only read 3 books, but I mean, I think that's still pretty good. But yeah, I'll go into why as I go into the video and talk about the books I read. But the first book that I read was Novel Without a Name. And this is described as the Vietnam War version of All Quiet on the Western Front. That All Quiet on the Western Front is one of my favorite books. And while I think this was good, I don't think it's quite up there with All Quiet on the Western Front for me. But it's still a very, very good book. And in this, we're following our main character, Quan. And he is a soldier, a Viet Cong soldier. So he's fighting for communism for Vietnam. And we see him, he joins when he's 18, and when the story starts, he's 28. And as you know, no, is he 28? I think he joins when he's 18, and when the story starts, he's in his late 20s. And as you know, the Vietnam War was a very long war. It was nearly 20 years. So, but he's basically spent like his youth as a soldier, which is wild to think about in and of itself. But I really did enjoy this. I have some notes here that I wrote. We are seeing like his experiences through the war. We're seeing how his friendships evolve. We're seeing how his family relationships change. We're seeing lost love. And yeah, I think I went into this already comparing it to All Quiet on the Western Front, but just thinking about like the trench warfare of World War One versus the more like jungle environment that they're experiencing during the Vietnam War. That was really interesting to see like the differences. And I think in both cases you have like that psychological impact of war, but like in trench warfare, I feel like you're dealing with like people, maybe a dead bodies being right next to you, that kind of thing. And I'm sure they're dealing with that during the Vietnam War too. But there are also instances where, you might be traveling through the jungle and you get lost and you don't know, like you're just wandering for days and you don't know if you're ever going to make it out, and just like hallucinations and things like that. So you are getting to see that as well in the story. You're also seeing like I say, evolving relationships. You're seeing how war changes people. It mentions like Quan and 2 of his close friends from his village, and you're seeing how Quan's a pretty reliable soldier. He is out there fighting. And then you have another one of his friends who's more like a higher up person, and kind of the way that friend approaches situations. And then you have another friend who's like, I don't think I could do this. Like, he don't want to fight no more. Like, he's going crazy. And so you're just seeing how each of them that were so close when they were younger, like experience the war differently and deal with the war differently. So I thought that was also really interesting. Another thing that I thought was that I thought about while reading this was I never thought about like the animals during war, but in this you're seeing like he describes how crows are like circling the battlefield, and like tigers who are displaced by the war are like attacking soldiers who aren't even on the front. So it's like, even when you aren't on the front fighting, you still are like, you're still fighting. You're fighting for your life. Like, there's just all these like external things that could impact you surviving. So I thought that was an interesting take, because I never thought about how with war like animals are also impacted by it. Also, like, this doesn't have chapters, and at times it does feel a little bit like a fever dream. It might jump from one moment to the next. But I think that adds to the story. I think it shows you like his experience in war. Like, he was just at war a long time. Like, and in the story, we only see him get to go home and have a break like one time in this whole time. So so yeah, at times it does feel like a fever dream, and even though there weren't chapters, I still think there was a good rhythm and a flow to the story as well. Yeah, overall, I really did enjoy this. I do think that this focuses more on emotions than All Quiet on the Western Front. And I don't know if that's just like a cultural difference, like between like Vietnam and Germany, because that book is written from the perspective of a German soldier. But you definitely get more explaining of emotions. I also don't know if it's different because All Quiet on the Western Front is written by a male author and this is written by a female. And stereotypically, I think that me being a woman and women, we kind of focus on emotion a bit more. But I did enjoy it. I don't think it took away from the story or anything. But that is something I noticed. Yeah, the only weird thing was at the end, like he's mentioning something about like the ancestors, and there was almost like this mystical like aspect to it, but that didn't really show up too much in other parts of the book necessarily. Like he does make there are like similarities or there's comparisons between things that are happening and like animals and stuff like that, but there's not really a mysticalness. But at the end when he was mentioning stuff about the ancestors, I thought that came out of nowhere and it was a little odd. But again, maybe it's just the impact of being at war for so long. But yes, I think if you like All Quiet on the Western Front, then I would give this a try. And I did overall think it was a good read. And I think both of them say something about government control, government manipulation, like government lying to the people. I think it was hard for our main character to, join the war effort, having a certain ideology and on the surface it being good, but then in play seeing that it doesn't work and that people are corrupt and some people don't even believe what they're talking about. And I think that was hard for our main character. So you're kind of experiencing that with him. And I thought that was also really interesting as well. But yeah, very good book. Very much enjoyed. After I read that, I really wanted something really a bit more positive and uplifting. So I read The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. This book is written in letters, and in it you are following a like 70-something-year-old woman, and you're seeing like the people she writes to. She writes to her friends, her family. She writes to authors that she likes, and through this we're learning a lot about her, and through her letters she learns a lot about herself. And this book was serious at times, it was sad at times, but it also was funny at times. Like I found myself laughing. And I think this is a book, it's one that makes you like appreciate your friends and family and appreciate life, appreciate your health, because things can change so quickly. And you see that with our main character, you see that with the people in her life. And but it's also like hope. This book was also like hopeful, like it's never too late at the same time. So yeah, this was just a sweet, like wholesome book, I would say. And I did read this for my book club, and some of the people, they had brought like letters that they wrote, and we were talking about how it's like an art form that people don't really do anymore, but it's really something that like forces you to slow down and like consider things in life and appreciate and really think about what you're doing. And so yeah, it was just a very interesting conversation. We also we went on a tangent a little bit about technology and things like that. But yeah, this is just a very heartwarming, heartfelt book. Okay, so the third book I read, I got it from the library and have since returned it. But this was a book for another book club, and that was Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I did not like this book, but I will say that I am not the target audience for this book, and it also had multiple points of view, which I'm not a big fan of. The book was also very, very long. It took me like 2 weeks to read it. It was like a little over 500 pages, which I don't even think is that much. A book that long, typically I probably could read it in maybe a week, in a few days, maybe even a week, depending on how quickly the pacing is. But typically when I start a book, I read it slower, but as I get into it, I read it faster because I'm engaged in it. But this book, so we're following 3 different women in 3 different time periods in 3 different places. I each chapter was focused on a different character. I personally didn't like that because I felt like it didn't give me enough time to become invested in a character. This story also has like a supernatural aspect, which I didn't know that going in, and I didn't see that until about 80 pages in. So I'm thinking this is gonna be like this like feminist, like you know, our one of the characters is, well, really all of them, feels a little bit oppressed. She is in, it was our character Maria, and she's in the 1800s in Spain, I believe it was. And she just feels oppressed by the fact that she's like, as a woman, the only path that for me to take is to get married and have kids. And she didn't want to, like, she wanted to be able to do other things. And I thought, oh, this is going to be like a liberation story, like how she takes a different path. And then suddenly, like, supernatural things were happening. And I was like so shocked by that. I didn't know, but that wasn't why I didn't like it. I just thought the book was really, really long, unnecessarily long. Like, we also have moments where another character, Alice, she's in 2019, and like she would just have these like flashbacks to memories with her sister, and I didn't see the point of why we were going over this memory sometimes. And I just felt like some of those things could have been taken out and the book would have been fine. Or those things could have been abbreviated. I also didn't see the connection between the characters until very, very far in the book. And so that made it hard for me to, when the chapters changed and I'm reading about a different character, I'm like, okay, so why did we pick up in this part of this character's story? Like, how is this relating to the character we just finished reading about? Or, so, or like even reading in a chapter and then you're like, oh, I'm a little bit interested now, but then like, oh, we're changing gears and switching characters. So yeah, this just wasn't my cup of tea. It took me a really long time to read. And like that is really the bulk reason I only read 3 books in March, because I'm a person who only likes to read one book at a time. I will say before I picked up that book, I had started Gail Jones's Eva's Man. I got about 50 pages in, but I put it down to read that for the book club. And I was enjoying this. This is very much in the same vein as her book Courage d'Or, which I read in February. Not vulgar, but very blunt. And the subject matter in this is I think for me harder to digest than Courage d'Or, because in this we're following Eva, and she's been imprisoned for murdering her lover, and she is like looking back on her life and her childhood, and you're just learning about all these things that happened to her. And I think it's just hard because it's hard for me to read about things happening to young people, and like how she was just like objectified and sexualized very young. And like it was just really, really hard to read about that. I do think this is a book that is best read in close proximity. Like, I don't think this is a book that you read a few pages and then don't pick up for a few days. I think this is best read like a little every day or in a sitting or two. And so I do want to come back to this. I just didn't, after, Novel Without a Name and everything, I just wasn't. And then that book, the V.E. Schwab book, I just wasn't ready to come back to this. But I do very much want to read this. And I'm probably going to just put it on the back burner for now because just the subject matter. And then I didn't get to the Feast of All Saints, but I do still want to read this. I might need to get a different copy because margins are so important to me, and there's no reason margins should be like this. It's so hard to read books. Like, it's even more important than the font size for me is the margins. Like, that really makes a big difference in a book. But again, I do want to get to this, and this is also a movie as well. And then finally, for our for this year, I'm doing a reading challenge. Every month there's a prompt, and the prompt for March was a classic you've been meaning to read, and I wanted to read a Russian classic. And I told you guys like three things I was thinking about reading, and I asked for your opinions. It was so funny, the comments. I had one of the books I had mentioned was Lolita, and the reactions were so mixed. Some people was like, oh yes, Lolita, and then some people were like, don't even waste your time. So I was intrigued by that, and so I did pick it up. I didn't obviously finish it. I only read maybe like 26 pages, but I went in knowing this was a story about a man who has an inappropriate relationship with a minor, and but I don't think I was mentally prepared because he knows he's a pervert. He knows. And it's like he's educated, and so he's trying to like justify why his thinking is not backwards, and the fact that he thinks like girls between like 9 and 14 are like the prime age. Like he's like justifying his actions, but then at the same time he talks about like not about like when he first was having these feelings, like trying to fight his thoughts and like hiring prostitutes and getting married to try to like block out what he was feeling, and how none of that worked. And so yeah, I don't know, it's like I'm like, part of me is like, I'm getting a look into his mind, and in that way it's intriguing, but at the same time it's like cringy what he's actually saying. So yeah, I wasn't mentally ready for this. So I did put this down, and I picked up Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I'm very, very early in this story. But I will be continuing this into April. And what I've read thus far, we're following our main character. I can't even remember what his name is, but we're following our main character, and he seems like he's been like just pushed, like knocked down by life, but he also seems like he's going a little bit crazy, and he's like having these thoughts about doing something, and he thinks of them as like, oh, that's just a crazy idea, but then he's actually like carrying out the idea. And so he seems unstable, but I am totally here for it, and I'm enjoying the writing. And this, while I didn't complete it in March, is what the book I'm going to be doing for that prompt and that challenge. So I'll give you more of my thoughts in my April wrap up on this book. But yes, that was all my March reading. I I hope you enjoyed this. I know I didn't read as much as I planned, but I think it's realistic. Like some months you read more, and some months you read less. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.